Hello and welcome to the Source One podcast. Consider us your source for the latest procurement, supply management, and strategic sourcing insights. Anytime, anywhere.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Source One podcast. I'm here with Jennifer Ulrich talking about maximizing your procurement training budget. How's it going, Jen?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. So to start off, how important would you say people are to procurement? And why is investing in people more important than investing in process or a new technology?
So I wouldn't necessarily say it's more important, but I think it is just as important as investing in new technology and process improvements. Mostly because when you think about all the new technological advances and everybody's talking about all the buzzwords of AI and RPA and all that, I don't think you're ever going to completely replace people, right. Even though I think sometimes we want to. At the end of the day, you still need the people. You still need the hands-on experience. And it's unfortunately the one piece of the equation that I think is ignored the most.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you opened your latest blog by talking about the skills gap in procurement that we hear so much about. When experts talk about the skills gap, what specifically are they referring to? What are the skills that are missing here?
Yeah, I think when we think about a procurement professional, unfortunately, we still have this outdated impression of what a procurement person is. They're this tactical, paper-pushing, literally have a rubber stamp in front of them saying approved, buy, don't buy, whatever. So executives expect procurement to be able to come in and do those sort of tactical activities, but they're not always hiring the right people to have the strategic mindset. So it depends on the role you're hiring for, but really to be able to deliver on more of the strategic spend management type of activity, you need to be a different kind of person, a different type of skill set that doesn't always come with, just walking in the door and taking the job, basically.
And do you think that outdated mindset, that outdated definition of procurement professionals is part of why companies might hesitate to invest in training?
Absolutely. I think that's very closely tied to it because unfortunately, and I don't know that this is terribly, the case all over, but they may find that or feel that these people are replaceable. So they're just paper pushers. I can get another one in the door tomorrow. They can do the same exact job. With that mindset, there's less of an attitude to putting them into the right training.
And how would you characterize the typical approach to procurement and supply management training?
I think, unfortunately, too, there's a mindset that you have to sit in 8 hours of classroom training where people are just talking at you about these very boring concepts. I think that's where people kind of rest their laurels, unfortunately. But I think that where training is going is a much more efficient, leveraging technology a lot more to do micro-learning and self-led activities where people can kind of go at their own pace and understand the content and be able to apply the content to what they're doing.
And would you say that poor or non-existent training programs could lead to a high turnover rate within a company?
I think nowadays more than ever. In the past, maybe career development wasn't as focused on, but now with, the emerging professionals, it's absolutely critical. I can tell you when I'm interviewing people, one of their biggest criteria for taking a job is there growth opportunities? I don't want to walk into a company that I'm going to feel stagnant in within 2 to 3 years. And training is a critical element to making sure that person grows not only within their role, but to additional roles in the company.
Mm-hmm. Plus, you don't want to feel like you're sort of floating without sort of a life preserver.
Yeah, absolutely.
From the start. And do you think an over-reliance on technology might play into procurement's hesitance to invest in training? Do you think it's the idea that automation is coming, why would I bother?
And that's what I think too. People might think that technology is going to take a lot of the activities away. And I would agree it is going to replace a lot of the tactical functions of procurement, but then you really can't replace that more strategic element that unfortunately a computer or a machine just can't produce.
Right. And could you describe more you talk a little bit about the direction we're seeing training programs go. Could you describe what these new programs look like?
Sure. I think micro-learning is a new buzzword that we're hearing a lot. It has to do with basically short drips of content that are more focused on a very specific topic. And unfortunately, that is, I think, a result of our society these days, that people have a short attention span. Right. They need it now. They need it quickly. And there's a common mindset that after 12 minutes, people lose attention to a particular topic. So these micro-learning type of concepts are really shooting in that 10 to 15 minute window. It's also, I think one of the downsides with that classroom-based training is that the executives are thinking, well, I can't take my people out of their job for 8 hours a day, 3-4 days a week. We're going to fall behind on their work. I don't have the productivity levels. There's a lot of misconceptions about that. So that's where I think that micro-learning really starts to sell itself, because not only can they do the self-led aspect where they train themselves and can take their time to understand the content and then apply it to their job. It also happens a lot more gradual, so that they can kind of do it on their own time, on their lunch break and here and there, without losing a complete day of work.
Right. I mean, we see all those surveys about how people want flexibility in their job. They want the option to work from home. They want to sort of make their own hours. I feel like this kind of training really caters to that.
Exactly.
And how can companies ensure, once they've got kind of a new training program in place, how can they test its effectiveness, and how can they make sure it evolves alongside procurement itself?
Yeah, and I think that itself is one of the biggest challenges with a training program, in getting the budget within the organization to develop a training program. It's very difficult to tie an ROI directly to a training program. There are some dotted lines, but how can you differentiate between efficiencies in a process from the technology the automated technology you're putting in place versus a training course on improving processes? It's a lot easier to say, well, it was the technology that did it. It wasn't the training that did it. And that's why we don't really get the traction that we need in organizations to build those training programs. And I think what it comes down to is that ROI on, is this really going to do what we expect it to do with the people? So I think, though, just kind of going a little bit more along those lines is really about the changing of the mindset about training programs, is not necessarily having to tie this very specific ROI to it, other than, if you think about it this way, if you think that your people are replaceable, think about the cost that it takes to go through the entire recruiting process, hire a recruiter, pay the recruiter, onboard a new person. Think about all the downtime between transitioning from an old role to a new role, getting a new person in there, and doing that, once every 2 years, how much that's going to cost you versus just extending your training budget to build a better retention program and just make your people happy. It doesn't have to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to train your procurement team.
And how would you recommend procurement teams go about earning that executive buy-in to get the budget for training? How can they most effectively advocate for the function's value?
I think that you kind of need to present the business case around it, which is that, career development, employee retention, depending on the culture and the attitude of the organization, hopefully they'll respond to that alone. But other than that, it is really about how do we evolve with the technology and how are the people going to keep up? Well, they need training. Right. So it's all about kind of speaking to the particular type of conversation that's happening already within the organization and trying to tie the business case to that.
Well, I think that about wraps it up, Jen. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Source One podcast. For more strategic sourcing and procurement insights every day, visit our blog, The Strategic Sorcerer. Want to provide feedback or suggest a topic for a future episode? Let us know at prrequest@sourceoneinc.com. Thanks for listening.